Recently, the X68000 Z began making its way out to people that backed it late last year. In case you missed it, the X68000 Z is a mini version of the classic Sharp computer released in 1987. This new product was meant to be a nearly one-to-one recreation of the original experience, right down to the real, full-sized mouse and keyboard it ships with. The early backer edition also shipped with 3 SD cards that are stored away in cases that mimic floppy disk. You get the OS Human 68K, Konami's Gradius arcade shoot-'em-up, and the system showpiece Chorensha 68K, a vertically scrolling shooter synonymous with the X68000. The unit is small but a bit larger than I had expected, and includes a number of cool little details that really make it special. There is a headphone jack on the front with its own volume adjustment, a carrying handle on the top, 4 USB ports in the back, a built-in speaker that imitates the sound of a floppy being read or outputs full game audio, and dual SD card slots that act as floppy drives, complete with access lights and their own eject buttons. The designers clearly wanted an authentic X68000 experience, and it shows in every area. The front end of the unit is simple and easy to use. You have a pure emulation mode that acts just like the original, and a graphical interface mode that shows you the details about your game and includes save states and the ability to exit back to the starting screen. Games, as of this video, only support the XDF file system, so you'll need a FAT32 formatted SDHC card between 2 and 32 gigabytes to play your own games. In this episode, we will be using the X68000 Z to test out some great looking titles. Keep in mind, I am still very much in the learning stages of running this little guy, but I think you'll really enjoy seeing how it fares right out of the gate. So let's go test some games. I was stoked to try Afterburner 2 because it was such a solid port. I loaded it up, and just like the last time I tried on an emulator, I could only play it with the mouse. Both the keyboard and controller seem to have no function at all. I'm not sure what the issue is there, or if that's just how the original game was designed, but for what it's worth, the X68000 Z does a good job running it from what I can tell. The mouse control is so fiddly though, I couldn't get past the canyon stage, but everything before that was spot on, sans some slowdowns here and there. This one I was really hoping would work well, and I was not disappointed. Kumonjo Dracula was essentially a remake of and a remix of various Castlevania titles before it. Using the power of the X68000, it painted one heck of a good looking game, and the X68000 Z captures that fairly well. You get the great looking sprites, the colorful backdrops, and oodles of parallax scrolling, and of course the music that ties the entire package together. There is a bit of jank to the scrolling, and I noticed some strange artifacts in some of the backgrounds, but otherwise it plays well enough. It only supports the internal FM sound of the original hardware, but I'm really hoping future updates will add compatibility for those MIDI modules. Gradius was a pack-in with the unit, and it comes on its very own SD card, complete with a floppy style case. This is a cool touch because if I recall correctly, the original X68000 also had a pack-in option that included this. And as one would have hoped, the emulation seems really nice. The sound, the gameplay, and the visuals all seem really faithful. I've only played it in a few levels, but so far it's been a treat. Since it is a fully supported title, it has an info panel, supports save states, and has an in-game reset and exit feature. I look forward to testing its sequels and its spin-offs. You may recall in my recent X68000 episode I had some issues capturing the Street Fighters via emulation. No issues here on the X68000 Z though. I tested out Street Fighter II Champion Edition, and man, just look at that. It's an absolute beauty and runs great. The only frustration I ran into was the fact that every controller I tried was only picked up as a 2-button variant, and not any of the Capcom supported devices. This meant that I could only play using one punch and one kick, which did kinda suck. Choosing any other controller option resulted in the game going bonkers by mixing up all the buttons. Even so, it's great seeing this game run this well, and I'm really hoping future updates add some controller options for situations like this. For those curious, Super Street Fighter II seems to run fantastic as well.
Round 1, fight! Hadouken! 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 Shoryuken! You win!
The exceptionally difficult Dragon Spirit seems to be running well on the X68000 Z. I was never any good at this game. I always felt underpowered and my enemies far faster and more potent. But the gameplay felt great from what I remember of it. The visuals also seem faithful. It even has the little opening cinematic of the little dude morphing into a dragon. No issues at all from what I could tell. I was always a fan of Dynamite Duke despite the simple premise. Think of it as kind of a third-person take on the Operation Wolf type of gameplay. This scrolled well, controlled fine, and I didn't notice any issues with the gameplay. Basically, you are dodging bullets and shooting down bad guys and their weaponry while collecting your own. You can melee attack up close, and you have a screen-clearing charge attack similar to shoot 'em ups. It's not quite a perfect arcade translation, and I honestly think the Genesis port plays better, but it's a fair conversion for what it is. Galaga 88 is near and dear to my heart, so I was really hoping this one would play, and luckily, everything seems fine. No issues at all from what I could detect. This one has you shooting down enemies wave after wave across many different stages. Graphics and sound are simple, but it packs some serious fun for Golden Era arcade fans. Chorinsha 68K is a title that comes up whenever anyone mentions the X68000. The makers of the X68000 Z were smart to pack it in with the unit, and even smarter getting this game running as well as it does. This was loaded with great little sprite effects and loads of enemies on the screen, and the X68000 Z seems to play it perfectly. I noticed no input lag to speak of. The sound and visuals seem spot on, and of course because it's an official release, it supports save states and its own info panel and launches straight from the interface. I hadn't sat down and played this one seriously in a very long time, but of the 3 stages I played, it was impressively close to the original. Atomic Runner Chelnov is a run-and-gun shooter with an auto-scrolling screen. This is based on the Data East arcade original, and it's pretty much a perfect port. It has the great animation and huge bosses you know and love, and doesn't skip a beat the entire way. The opening cinematic is here, and the stage design is pretty much one-to-one. Even the classic tunes are well represented. It's hard as all get out, but fans should have no trouble jumping right in and enjoying this classic arcade game. Our final test subject for this episode is Thunder Force 2. As a longtime fan of this series, I thought for sure this would run, but I knew something was amiss right away because the demonstration screen was borked, and sure enough, once I got into the game it was completely unplayable. The sprites either disappear entirely or are hidden behind the backgrounds, making any sort of progress impossible. Of all the games I tried for this episode, this was the only one with major problems, but it was so broken there was just no way to enjoy it. Hopefully, future software updates address whatever is making this run this way. I wanted to do this episode for a few different reasons. First, I thought many of you would enjoy seeing the X68000 Z in action. It's a really cool little device that is shooting to give you a faithful experience into what it was like owning an X68000 all those years ago. But I also wanted to show you that this little guy is still very early in development, and there are all kinds of reasons to wait on getting one. Official games seem to be the only ones that get save state and in-game menu support. If you are simply playing floppy images from an SD card, you get virtually no options. I also found the current interface to be severely lacking. It won't read subfolders on the SD card, nor would it pick up more than a few dozen games, which meant just dropping an entire catalog of titles onto your SD card was not an option. Controller support seems to work with just about any direct input PC-compatible controller, but it only sees it as a basic 2-button X68000 original. It's also really important to note that while the in-game emulator is up and running, some games have issues. Stuff like Thunder Force 2 is a no-go, and I've tested a few others that have big problems as well. As new software updates hit the device, I will make additional videos showing more games tested and how things are panning out. But I think it's really important for anyone considering picking one of these up at its extremely hefty asking price to consider this thing is not ready for prime time just yet. There is a reason this is called an early access kit, and it's very young in its features, support, and what it can offer as a standalone entertainment device. It has loads of potential for sure, but at its current limited availability and high asking price, it's just not a great investment unless you are looking for something to grow with long term or are an X68000 superfan that must own everything. I'll have a part 2 up soon with more games so you can see how this platform matures. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.